Welcome, everybody, to another show of Freedom and Survival. In this show, I want to go over the inaugural address by President Trump, and I want to make my own analysis and comments. I've been meaning to get back on the channels, but I've been on the road, and I've not been successful at getting my equipment on the road up and running, and so here I am back in the studio. Thank you for joining me. We're going to go through the 30 minutes of the inaugural video, and then what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to pause it from time to time and make my comments. Now, I want to have us take a look at this just basically for face value, and then make comments based on various criteria of both biblical and historical facts, and what this speech means and how this is going to be carried out. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into this. I got to set this up here as far as what we're going to be looking at. We'll do that, and then let's go ahead and just get started in the video itself. So let's listen to President Trump as he begins this inaugural address. Now, I do apologize once again for being late to the draw. One thing I want to mention before we get started is that he's going to address the issue of artificial intelligence. And I am going to, when I'm done here, I'm going to do an entire video on artificial intelligence. It's going to be predicated upon a video that I did a few weeks back, and I did it in my Timotheus Enterprises channel based on the business aspect of artificial intelligence. In this case, I'm going to address that as well as address concerns, both pros and cons and concerns. And I'm going to do it in such a way that I can put various parts of that video into Freedom and Survival, into Timotheus Enterprises, and into Timotheus Biblical Studies. And you can be looking for that particular or those videos here in the near future. When I get done with this, I will be going into that, and we're going to be addressing that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this particular video with President Donald Trump.
I will very simply put America first. Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end.
So I want to make a comment on that particular statement in and of itself. I'm going to bring the audio back up. When he talks about the sovereignty of our country, this is going to literally fly in the face of what we consider and what has been talked about as the deep state and their mirroring of the WEF and the UN's basic doctrine of no borders. And we can see this and President Trump is going to talk about this here in a little bit, but we can see this in the U.S.'s policy and Europe's policy of bringing in immigrants since President Obama was in office. And the fact that President Obama, and it's historical fact that President Obama would, as our tourists would go over to Europe, that those planes would return, or some of those planes would return with empty manifests, but full planes of undocumented, uncharted, illegal aliens or immigrants. And this was brought to our attention by 3 different senators from 3 different states who happen to be commercial airline pilots. Now, whether you can find that on the internet or not, I don't know, but it's a fact. You can also see this in the policy of our southern border and our northern border, in the fact that they would that the administrations would bring train loads and caravans of illegals, and the key word is illegals, into the border, and then have the policy of catch and release. And President Trump is going to address that as well. But all of that stems, and this is something you need to understand, that all of that stems from the WEF, and you can see that in the 3 pillars of societal change coming from the WEF, World Economic Forum, and the UN. You could see that in the adoption of the Standard Operating Procedure, or SOPs, during COVID. You can see it during Obama's administration, and you could see it during Biden's administration. And the science field, the NIH, the CDC, the FDA, all, and the political train, all adopted that language. And to further explain that idea, when you would listen to Biden or Kamala Harris or any of those people or individuals or politicians in their area, on their side, so to speak, they would never address these as illegal aliens. They would always say immigrants, which is a misnomer, and it is a twist of semantics, because they were mirroring not a sovereign nation, not sovereign borders, but they were mirroring the UN and the WEF's globalization of no sovereignty and no borders. And so this is what Trump is talking about. Let's continue on with the video.
And our top priority will be to create a nation that is proud, prosperous, and free. America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country, sunlight is pouring over the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America. As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens, while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency, as recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina, been treated so badly.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a little bit. When he talks again about the sovereignty of our country and getting back to a sovereign, workable country, he's not wrong. As a matter of fact, when the definition of treason is aiding and abetting the enemy and not securing the borders of our country, that is treason. And when he talks about sanctuary cities and giving aid and money to those who do not have the United States' interest in mind or at heart. In essence, what he's saying is that our government, which is supposed to be by the people and for the people, our government has been trafficking in what would be considered treason. And when he talks about justice, and we take a look at what has gone on in the judicial system, not only in the area of illegals, but also in the area of dealing with politicians who have flagrantly and blatantly violated the Constitution of the United States, he's not wrong. And we can go back to Obama with Fast and Furious, and I've done this, I've said this on many occasions. Fast and Furious running guns into the cartels and into the inner cities because they wanted to arm the gangs to create chaos so that they could bring martial law. And it backfired. We look at Hillary Clinton with the sensitive classified email server that should never, ever have gone outside of the locked doors of the halls of the Senate. What was found in her house, knowing that she had given the password to the highest bidders. We remember not only Benghazi, where there was a cover-up with Obama and Biden and Hillary selling small arms and surface-to-air missiles to Iran when they were on the sanctions list. We also have to remember the Bundy Ranch in Nevada, when Hillary and Pelosi and Reid wanted to sell U.S. territory to the Chinese government for the sake of installing solar energy. And the list goes on and on and on. We can actually take this back to Clinton, and it's been discussed recently when he and his right-hand man was selling military secrets to China. This goes along with Zelensky's rules of leveling the playing field with our enemies rather than keeping peace by superiority. And when President Trump is talking about American justice and the judicial system, he's not wrong. I also want to add the fact that of the continual misuse of governmental powers by the FBI, beginning with Comey, and it probably goes back further than that, but you can chart it with Comey under the appointment of Hillary Clinton. Comey was her banker and her launderer before she appointed him as the director of the FBI. Oh, it does go back. It goes back to Reno with Hillary smoking out, the dude, David Koresh at Waco. And we can even take it back further than that if you want to include Ruby Ridge. These all are unconstitutional events. These are all unconstitutional aspects of betrayal within our government. He's not wrong. And I'm not saying that all agents in the FBI are guilty of treason. That's not what I'm saying. But when you look at the whole, and you look at what has been taking place in our country, and you hear President Trump's address, he is not wrong. Let's continue.
And other states who are still suffering from a hurricane that took place many months ago, or more recently, Los Angeles, where we're watching fires still tragically burn from weeks ago without even a token of defense. They're raging through the houses and communities, even affecting some of the wealthiest and most powerful individuals in our country, some of whom are sitting here right now. They don't have a home any longer. That's interesting. But we can't let this happen. Everyone is unable to do anything about it. That's going to change. We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide to them. All of this will change starting today, and it will change very quickly.
So the question I have with this is, are we turning back the tides of perversion in our country? I kind of hope so. That's my stance. When you take a look at not just inclusion of people that disagree with you, but the flagrant deniability of who we are. And when President Trump says that he is going to reverse the educational system and stop the flow of federal money for transgenderism and all of that, for mutilation, and declare that there are two genders, male and female. My question is he reversing the tide of perversion? Because that is exactly what it is. And I'm not saying that you don't love the person who is confused, deluded, delirious, and being taught incorrectly. I'm not saying you don't love them, but I'm saying it is a perversion, and it is. So my question is President Trump reversing the tide of perversion? And if so, are we as an American people behind him? Because there's going to be more to this than what is being said. Let's continue.
Is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place, and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government. Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
Okay, and a little bit further down the road, we're going to talk about that as well. Exactly what does it take to make America great again? And what I'm getting at and what I'm alluding to, it's not just what we see with our physical eye. Exactly what does it take to make America great again? I do want to go back and say and talk about for a little bit what he's talking about with the government not being for the American people. And he's right. The federal government has forgotten, by and large, and I'm not saying everybody, because I have friends who serve within the federal government. They take the same oath that I've taken. That's to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But then when it comes down to it, They are treating the American citizens like Soviet Russia used to treat its citizens, like communist China treats its citizens. And like Trudeau says, he wants his country to be more like China. We have, in fact, been moving down that road of inaction to be like China. And he's right. And it's not good. It was not a good direction. It isn't a good direction. And even now, when President Trump is reversing these things, we see people within the government are actually refusing to carry out his mandates and his orders. Why? Because they are traitors and they don't want to let go of the power they have. Pure and simple. And I think that it is behoven of us as the American people to take note of these people and understand that they are not Americans at heart. I don't care what their citizenship looks like. If they are not willing to abide by the rule of law and understand that it is by the people and for the people, and their power is derived from the people, not to incriminate and to control and to criminalize people, everyday people, for silliness, then they really need to go, because their allegiance is somewhere else. Let's continue on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I also want to point out, if you notice, on Trump's left, you got Kamala, you got Biden, Hillary, you got all these people. It looks like Hillary. I thought she was on his right, but now you got the Clintons on his left, and not a one of them are behind him or clapping. Just take a look.
That is why each day under our administration of American patriots.
Take a look on his left.
Thank you very much.
Here it comes. Here it comes right over here on his left, our right. There's very few people in that row that is standing up, including the Bushes.
Of American patriots,
They're a part of the
we will
club.
be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day.
And here we go with the commercials. Let's just get rid of that real quick, and we'll continue.
20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. It is my hope that our recent presidential election will be remembered as the greatest and most consequential election in the history of our country. As our victory showed, the entire nation is rapidly unifying behind our agenda with dramatic increases in support from virtually every element of our society, young and old, men and women, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, urban, suburban, rural. And very importantly, we had a powerful win in all 7 swing states. And the popular vote, we won by millions of people. To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it.
All right, I want to say something with that. For probably, I want to say, well, since Obama was in office, we have seen a great divide in this country, and before then, we have been looking at what would be considered race baiting. We'll put it that way. And President Trump is making a point here, and I want to make the point here, and I've said it before, that there are no races. We are not, let's say, we're not dogs and zebras and alligators and giraffes and whales. That's not what we are. We are human beings, and what he's saying is correct. He doesn't understand maybe the word race because we're all the human race. And so I would like to appeal to you as an American citizen at this time. And I would say don't forget your culture. Don't forget where you come from. I think that it is important that we, as Americans, we don't forget our history. There's been a major push to rewrite our history, and good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not saying that all of our history has been written correctly, because I don't think it has. And you see this in the discrepancies of historical teaching in our schools. At least when I was growing up, the difference between what the North taught, particularly about the Civil War, versus what the South taught. And what both understood was the pivotal issues that took us into war. And the North would tell you it was the issue of slavery, and the South would tell you, no, it wasn't. It was the issue of autonomy and not having a federal government having more power than the local governments. And so you have these discrepancies. Having said that, it's important for us as people of the United States to remember our history and to be Americans while remembering our history, and be Americans while understanding our cultures. We are a melting pot. We have all kinds of different cultures here. And if we can go and travel abroad, for instance, when I was in Korea, when I went to Mexico, when I went to Japan, when my wife and I went to when I went to Canada, when my wife and I went to the Netherlands, when our sons went to Abu Dhabi and in Egypt and Sudan and Romania and all these different places, and we enjoy visiting these various countries and enjoy learning about other people's cultures and traditions. There's nothing wrong, and we should remember our traditions and where we come from in this country, but at the end of the day, say, I am an American. And then oftentimes, when we agree to disagree, and I'm not saying set your own standards aside, particularly where it means the most, but have respectful conversations and treat one another with respect as fellow citizens. This has been eroding under a traitorous and treasonous push. This has been eroding. Why? Because a house divided against itself cannot stand. You just stop and think about that. A house divided cannot stand. And then why would they put try to drive wedges between the American people? If you stop and think about it, you connect all these dots, it all makes sense. Let's continue on.
Heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true.
Okay, I had a conversation with somebody that I know about this very statement. And that individual, I mean, I respect him. We're fellow military individuals. I respect him. I work with him. And quite frankly and respectfully, he heard this wrong. Now, in discussing this with him, I thought maybe I heard it wrong, but I did not. President Trump was saying he wants to make MLK's dream come true. Do we need to listen to it again? Because the individual I spoke to said, no, he was saying, like MLK, wanting to make MLK's dream come true. He, President Trump, wants to make President Trump's dream come true. That's not what I heard. Let's listen to it again.
But in his honor, we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true.
His dream a reality. His dream come true. Well, the left can agree with that. Even though they contradict it at every
now
point.
Returning to America, and confidence and pride is soaring like never before. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. We will not forget our country, we will not forget our Constitution, and we will not forget our God. Can't do that.
Okay, so let's talk about that statement for just a moment. We will not forget our God. First of all, we have to ask, which God is he talking about? And second of all, let's go back to talking about what actually would make a country great. And that is, now, if you remember, God said, great is the country whose God is the Lord. The Lord, not a Lord, not Lord Satan, but Lord Jehovah. Okay? Now, I want to share with you something here in talking about making America great again, whether you agree with it or not. And I'm gonna point out to you, if you don't believe in God, or you believe in a higher power, but you don't believe what God says, I'm going to point out to you a point of hypocrisy. Okay? And I'm not saying there's not hypocrisy on both sides, because there certainly is. But I'm going to point out to you, if you say you don't, let's say you're atheist, or let's say you believe in Buddha or Muhammad, and I'm not saying you don't have the freedom to do that. You do. And as a Christian, I disagree with you. As a constitutionalist, I will protect and stand for your right to believe whatever you want. And there's a reason for it. And those who don't understand this need to think about it. But here's the thing. If we all don't have the freedom to believe and practice what we believe, that is the freedom of religion, then nobody has it. And if we have the ability to practice Christianity in this country, then everybody has the freedom to practice what they believe. Now, having said that, we need to think very carefully what we believe. And I am calling us to believe in the Lord God Jehovah. The Lord God Jehovah, and a relationship with him through Jesus Christ, as he led us into, through the Old Testament, into the New Testament. Now, If you say you don't believe, I'm going to give you a point of hypocrisy. What is the date today? What was the date yesterday? What is the day today? You say, well, what in the world does that have to do with what I believe and why I don't submit to the Word of God? Because it is very simple. While you deny the Lord God who created heaven and earth, and while you deny His Word and what He says is true, every day that you put your foot on the ground to walk, every day that you take a breath, you are living by the day that He established. Because in Genesis it says that God created the heavens and the earth. He created the sun and the moon, the sun to rule the day, the moon to rule the night, and He separated the light from the darkness. He created day and night, and from day to night was the first day. And so you live your life by what He says, just by living by the calendar, just by seeing the sun go up and the sun go down. You think about that for a while. Now, what has made this country great in the past, amidst all of its evil, and I'm telling you, there are dark, dark, dark secrets in this country. But if we live in the light as He is in the light, and we have fellowship with Him, we have fellowship with one another, that is a common goal, striving for a common cause that is righteous, then those things will flee. And that is what will make America great again. Having a standard that is not subjected to what you and I want, but to what is right. Not an arbitrary baseline that shifts with the wind, like we've been used to for a very, very long time. And we see in many ways that President Trump is bringing this back. He's getting rid of perversion, at least the support of it. Are there concerns? Absolutely. And I'm going to address those here in the rest of this video. There's something else that I want to bring to your mind when it comes to making America great again. And let's take a look here, full screen. When the Lord talks about bringing Israel out of Egypt to a promised land. Let's take a look at this for just a moment. And I want to show you in Deuteronomy chapter 8, and I've read this before. And let's read through verse 18. And then what we will do is we will take a look at the principles of this passage, and I will apply it to making America great again. All of the commandments that I am commanding you today you shall be careful to do, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord swore to give your forefathers. You shall remember all the way which the Lord your God has led you into a wilderness. And let me tell you something. As people of the United States of America, we have been floundering like fish out of water. We have been literally wandering through a wilderness as blind people without a map, because we have abandoned God. And that's another thing. We can't put God back into the schools. We can't put God back in anything. We're the ones that left. We're the ones that have to go back. God is still where He was. God is still on the throne. He still cares about you. He loves you. He wants you. He don't need us. He wants us. and he wants a relationship with you, and he wants a relationship with all people of the world. But as we talk about the United States of America, we have to go back to him. We don't put him anywhere. We as individuals and as a people as a whole have to come back to God himself. I just want to point that out. In verse 2, you shall remember all the ways which the Lord your God has led you into the wilderness these 40 years, that he might humble you, testing you to know what is in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. And folks, this is in large part why we go through struggles, why we struggle to see and to show ourselves whether we are going to keep the commandments of God, whether we're going to keep his commandments, whether we keep his precepts, whether we're going to follow him, whether we're going to listen to him, whether we're going to believe his word for what he says. And I'm not going over this video to preach to you. But if we're going to make America great again, we can't presume that this is simply going to be done by sheer human willpower, but by the hand of God, by trusting him and then following his direction. Let's continue on. He humbled you and let you be hungry, fed you with manna, which you did not know. I'm at the top of the screen here. Nor did your fathers know, that he might make you understand that man does not live by bread alone. That would include us in the United States of America. Man means mankind. Anthropos, in the Greek word, is anthropos. Now, I understand this here is in the Hebrew, but because we don't generally know Hebrew, I'm sharing with you the Greek equivalent, and we get the word anthropology from it. The word anthropos in the Greek, the word man in the New Testament would be anthropon, anthropos, whatever the suffix is going to be based on the declension. Now, he says here, understand that man does not live on bread alone or by bread alone, but man lives by everything that proceeds out of the mouth of the Lord. For crying out loud. Your clothing did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. Let me just add this real quick. You know, when Moses was up on the mountain and he was in the face of God getting the 10 Commandments, he did not eat. Did you catch the wording here that man lives by everything that proceeds out of the mouth of God, or man does not live by bread alone. Jesus said the same thing in Matthew chapter 4. Man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. And the word in the New Testament, what Jesus is talking about, is the word rhema. What proceeds, what God says, is what man lives by. Your clothing did not wear you out, or wear out on you. Your foot did not swell these 40 years. Thus you are to know in your heart that the Lord your God was disciplining you just as a man disciplines his son. Therefore you shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of waters, fountains of springs flowing forth in valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, vines and figs, pomegranates, and land of oil and honey, olive oil and honey. A land where you will eat food without scarcity, in which you will not lack anything, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you can dig copper. When you have eaten and are satisfied, you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land which he has given you. Beware, and here it is right here, beware that you do not forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments and his ordinances and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. Folks, this is exactly, if you don't see, and I know contextually, God is talking to his chosen people, the nation of Israel. Contextually, that's the case. But if principally speaking, you do not see the United States of America and other countries, to be frankly honest, in these words, you will be missing the boat about making the United States of America great again, or any country there that you could even possibly talk about. It's just a matter of fact. And if you go through history and you see countries wane, this is what you see. Doesn't matter what country it is. If they and I know there's communist countries that have been, like China, been in existence, but you see them going through difficulties. They've been poor. Look at North Korea. The leadership is godless. The leadership is godless, and they are a poor nation. You see this with the man, I can't think of the country in Africa, the Ethiopia. Ethiopia was a premier Christian nation. It was a Christian nation. And when it decided to walk away from God, it has become a desert. Why? Because the principles of God said, if you walk away from me, I will make you desolate and a desert. I will bring famine to your land. It is a spiritual truth and a spiritual law. And we as God's people, or we as God's people, but we as a country need to take heed to this historical and biblical fact if we want America to be great. Otherwise, when you have eaten and are satisfied and have built good houses and lived in them, and we as a country have, when your herds and your flocks multiply and your silver and gold multiply, ours has, and all that you have multiplies, then your heart will become proud, and you will forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the house of slavery. And we have. He led you through a great and terrible wilderness with its fiery serpents, scorpions, and thirsty grounds where there was no water. He brought water from you out of rock of flint. In the wilderness he fed you manna, which your fathers did not know, that he might humble you and that he might test you, to do good for you in the end. Otherwise you may say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand has made this wealth. This is a stark warning. This is a stark warning for us as American citizens if we are to make America great. If America is to be great, put it that way. And I'm not saying we don't put our hand to the grind. I'm not saying we don't put our hand to the plow. That's not what I'm saying. We're going to get there in just a moment, because faith without works is dead. But we do so in these things, that we don't say in our hearts that we have made this strong. This is the warning. When President Trump is talking about making America great again, the warning is that it does not come from the pride of our human hearts, or the wealth that we derive and the strength that we derive will be short-lived. It will be. And it will cave to secular, lower tier, secular human tragedy. We've been struggling with this, people. We've been struggling with this very thing for a long time. And you can't deny, I don't care what your belief system is, you can't deny the evidence. He goes on to say in verse 18, and this is where I was driving to, but you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who has given you the power to make wealth, that he may confirm his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. The point of the matter is, as a principle, we are told that when we give our time in work, we are to work as unto the Lord. And when we understand that it is God that has given us the power to make wealth, and President Trump talks about making this country prosperous and wealthy again, that we do not forget that it is the Lord God who gives us the power to make wealth. And we must not forget this. And we must not forget that He is the Lord and He's given us this opportunity and ability. I just want to bring this out. It's imperative. It's imperative that we understand this. Now let's continue on with President Trump's speech.
Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release.
That is awesome.
And I will send troops.
Catch and release is, again, in my estimation, treason. And the definition of treason is aiding and abetting the enemy. And it is not protecting sovereign borders and not protecting your own citizens by way of aiding and abetting. And he is right.
The southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
Let's go back for just a moment. Once again, hold on, President Trump. Let's take this back once again. Notice these people right here. All right. Right here, the heads. Let me bring this full screen. Notice these people on the bottom left of your screen. I don't know if you could see that. They were not standing up. Why? Because they are beholden to cartel. They're beholden to an invasion.
I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist.
Notice the lower left screen. They were all for an invasion. Look at these people. They're for, look at it right there on the bottom of your screen. They are for the invasion.
And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities.
And we know that in Aurora, Colorado, just a couple days after President Trump said this, that ICE rounded up at least 50 Nicaraguan gang members who had taken over apartment complexes and city blocks by armed force. This is what you call protecting your sovereign borders. And yet we have people that are upset that he would do this. Now, I don't necessarily agree with ICE going in to grade schools and getting children as a show of force. I'm not sure I agree with that. Is at least what is being portrayed. I'm not sure that's what's happened, but that's what I was told. And if that's the case, I'm not sure I agree with that. But I do agree with what happened right after he said this. And that was the fact that he did start rounding up what was known, what they could get as illegal aliens and illegal alien gang members. And you won't hear me argue about this as far as him. This is exactly, they never should have been here to begin with. And for us to and honestly, for us to have to spend the money to do this is completely on the previous administration, the administrations of Obama and of Biden's, and anyone who obeyed those orders.
As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before.
Good.
Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices.
Okay, so we also know that President Trump has said he is going to bring tariffs to all incoming goods. And to be frankly honest, this should have been done back in the 80s. This should have been done back in the 80s. And the opposers to his tariffs will bring out President Reagan, who was seen as a great president, and they will cite a speech, I listened to it myself, where he says that we need to compete in a global economy and we need cheaper goods and things like that. And he lowered the tariffs, he lowered the import taxes. And when we talk about tariffs, we're talking about import taxes. And while all those countries charge an exorbitant amount of income taxes, and I will give you an example. Over in Korea, if you saw an American car, the import taxes on that car were triple what the car was worth. And yet we would have goods come from Korea and there would be almost no import taxes on those goods. And if you look at the growth, at that point in time, communist China had a global product, whatever it is, of 1.6 to 1.9, and we had a 25 to 26% GPD, whatever it is. And then after Reagan lifted all of those import taxes, everything flipped around, and the U.S. is now at 6 or less percent, and China is at 19, almost 20%. So in essence, and what Trump is saying is 100% correct. We have been enriching every country in the world while taking the shaft. And while the opposers will play Reagan's video of his speech, they will not show you the historical statistics from 1986 until now as a whose gross product, global gross product, whatever you call it, is, because they don't want you to know they've been subverting this country, and Trump is correct. So To right the ship is going to be painful. To right the ship is going to be painful. The concern that I have is that in this country, in this generation, we have become so lazy that a lot of people, they want to have a job, but they don't want to work the job. And so when we bring in industry and we build industry back up in this country, people aren't going to work it. They're not going to work it. And that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a big problem. Our work ethic, along with understanding the idea that God has given you the power to make wealth, our work ethic has gone down the tubes. And that will be a problem when we start to rebuild, unless we change our tune and take joy and pride in accomplishing things with our own hands and with our own minds. This is going to be a problem. This is going to be a big problem, to switch around from being a spending, consuming, in-debt society to one who creates and builds with our minds and our hands. Not having workers, not having a good work ethic is going to be an issue. Let's continue.
The nation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill.
Hi, I'm Brad Johnson.
Gotta love these commercials.
Emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. America will be a manufacturing nation once again,
Now, if
and we
people
have
don't work,
something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have, the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we are going to use it. Going to use it. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal, and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers.
remember Biden, he said, I don't work for you, you work for me.
Of your choice. We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago. And thank you to the auto workers of our nation for your inspiring vote of confidence. We did tremendously with their vote. I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. For this purpose, we are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government. My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency.